We were just coming out of an executive session, so I'm sorry for the slight delay. This is actually the only meeting of the year that I actually get to kick off, because it's the meeting during which the school committee reorganizes, because we've just had an election and we actually officially welcomed for the first sort of regularly scheduled school committee meeting, new committee member Tony Mullen. So welcome to that. But I'd actually like to officially kick off the meeting by doing the Pledge of Allegiance, and there's maybe all the kids in the room who can help lead the adults in the pledge. I also want to point out that we are being recorded tonight by Westcott. Thank you for coming. So first order of business is reorganization, and I'm looking for nominations for chair.
I'd like to nominate Giuseppe Gowdy for chair.
I'll second that.
Nomination for Giuseppe Gowdy. Motion by Carol, seconded by Brian. All in favor? Congratulations, Mr. Gowdy.
That's the best part of being chairman, you get those little gals.
I want to thank Brian for his excellent leadership this year,
Thank you.
and I hope I can continue. Short meeting. Okay, so now we would like a nomination for vice chair.
Nominate Carol, vice chair.
Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so Carol and Lois is our new vice chair. And we will entertain nominations for clerk. We have a nomination.
And I would nominate Brian Kelly.
Second? One of our members isn't here, so it's a little strange. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, first order of business is the superintendent's report.
Yes, the superintendent's report, we have some student recognitions to do. Tonight we have a lot of very special guests here from several of our schools who are winners in sort of their respective divisions of our most recent elementary math meeting. And so welcome. I'm glad you guys came. But I'm going to turn it over real quickly to Mark Plesanoga, who's been, it's been many, many years now that Mark's been coordinating the elementary meeting. So Mark, you want to say something, and then we'll introduce the kids?
Sure. I want to thank Dr. Antonucci and the principals of all the elementary schools for the support that we get week after week. These kids are just a sample set of several hundred that get up early every Thursday or Friday morning, get to school early, they do math problems at a great time, and then they go to class. And then twice a year, we have town-wide math meets for all the elementary schools. We have one in January. That's more of a mixer-friendly kind of warm-up for the math meet that we do in April. And then all the 5 elementary schools participate in grades 3, 4, and 5. And we are hosted by Principal Borches here and Vice Principal Kyle Grady give us tremendous support on allowing us to invade the cafeteria and auditorium at the middle school and gym to hold this event twice annually. So we have, I don't know, 10 or 20 or 30 kids here that won the championship this year. So from 3rd grade, 3rd grade was Deerfield. 3rd grade winners were Deerfield. 4th grade winners were from Martha Jones. And 5th grade winners were from the Sheehan School. And then we had 2 first place winners that scored perfect scores on the 5th grade written exam. Are they here? Can you stand up? What's your name?
My name is Dennis.
Dennis. So Dennis
Dennis
scored.
Papetti.
Dennis scored a perfect score.
So the other winner of the individual competition was Connor Long. don't believe Connor's here tonight. So Mark, let's maybe call them up in waves. Let's do the individual winners. We're going to take a picture.
Yep.
And then we'll call up the third, fourth, and fifth. How's that sound? I'm going to, Ms. Johnny, want to jump in?
And I think this.
I want to be in this.
Wow. 24 out of 24.
Good job.
So I also wanted to note that this was our 8th annual math meet, and each year the participation level has grown. So 3 years ago, we had 170 students participate, 2 years ago, we had 180, and this year, almost 195. So they just need to keep coming.
So Mark, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How many years have you been doing this?
Well, this is my 8th year doing
Right.
math meet, and also coordinate the effort at the Monte Jones School. So, and then we have Amy here who helps with the math meet council. We have representatives from every school that actually organize the math meet. So Amy and a whole bunch, anybody else here from the town organization? There's about 8 of us that actually organize this thing.
I think we should give them
Yes,
a.
Yeah.
So why don't we do the third
Yeah, so
grade?
what I'll do is, we're going to do third grade first, so I'll call, I'm going to read all the names, I know all of you aren't here, and then we'll have you come to the front of the room, and we'll take a picture, and then we'll do fourth and fifth grade. How's that sound? And then Mr. Pleasant will, I'm going to hand him the certificates, and he'll give them to you a little, after we exit. Sound good? All right, so let's do the third grade winners. They're from the Deerfield School. We have Jack Roycroft. Okay, Aviana Wicks, Grace Barnett, Sophia Vitale. Yeah, come up and stand up. I'll stand up there so you can stand up. Charlotte Scalaro, Kyle Harvey, Andrew Alex, Owen Belcher, Timmy Malloy, Jagger DeWolf, Daniel Wasserman, Kostaki Traviakis, did I get that? Colin Belcher, Alex Prosha, Rayan Padaria, Ryan Coughlin, Owen Zhang, Giuseppe Ciampa? So that's our third grade winners for the Deerfield. Right? No, squeeze. Everybody squeeze together, guys.
Want to take a picture of Sophia?
Good job, Deerfield. Okay, fourth grade winners from the Martha Jones School. Grace Klein. Megan McFlorian. Kevin Judd. Joshua Hua. Tyler Doms. Allison Wen. Angie Wu. Haley Ghazali. Those are our fourth grade winners, Martha Jones. Good job, Jeff. This young lady just reminded me that they won this year too. And so, 5th grade from the Sheehan School. We'll start with Nate Bowers, Will Schreiber, Thomas Preddy, Dennis Papetti again, Michael Powers, is it Siobhan Maloney? Sienna Horn, Paul Dyson, Caroline Shue, Grace Papetti, Mariana Warrington. Great job. Over here. Awesome, Mrs. Lewis. Great job, parents, you're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to go.
That's our cue.
Sorry, and then we have one more child that we need to recognize. It is
So we have Girl Scout Gold Award winner Bridget Doherty is here tonight. Bridget's going to make a brief presentation, and then I believe she's actually going to be awarded the Gold Award. So we're thrilled that she's here with us tonight. So Bridget, do you want to kick off your presentation?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. Before I start, I'd like to give a big thanks to some of my Girl Scout sisters in my troop. Thank you for coming. You've always been there to support me. And my two troop leaders, Miss Webster, Mary Parlato, thank you so much. And Miss Barrett also. And I'd like to give a big thanks to the most supportive woman in my life, my mom. So, just heads up, I'm from Troop 77512. Best years of my life. So, I'm just going to get started for you all. So, growing up in a town such as Westwood, I've had many opportunities to get involved, whether it was sports, school or church activities, or community organizations. My parents wanted me to try everything. But the one activity I started in elementary school and stuck with all the way through high school was Girl Scouts. Being part of Girl Scout troop gave me a sense of belonging. I wasn't being judged or graded on my abilities or talents. As a troop, we joined forces to help one another and do good for others and our community. Our troop sold many cookies, which funded our trips to Canada, New York City, and Nantucket. We organized gently used coat drives, Girl Scout fairs, and encampments for younger troops in the town to take part in. For our Bronze Award, the troop planned out a disabilities fair to collect necessities to be given to service dogs through the Needs program. For my Silver Award, I teamed up with a close friend, and we came up with a plan to collect over 1,000 canned goods. The slogan we came up with was Cans for a Cause. 3 different organizations benefit from this project. First, the cans were used to weigh down luminary bags in the Relay for Life. Second, we carefully cut out the box tops off of all the cans and donated them to our local elementary school, the William E. Sheehan School. Third, the Relay for Life when the Relay for Life was over, we brought all the canned goods to our local food pantry. For my Gold Award, I researched on how the William E. Sheehan School got its name. This project challenged my organizational skills and how to form and delegate responsibilities. It definitely tested my computer skills. The project also pushed me to plan ahead, organize and prepare myself for group meetings, and to graciously take suggestions and criticism from others. For this project, I wanted to first research who William E. Sheehan was by interviewing and talking to family members in the local police department. Patrolman Sheehan was described as being truly dedicated as a police officer. He was a 37-year-old veteran in the force. Some of the quotes people used to describe him were, "He was a real cop. He was really true to the cause. Bill Sheehan was tops. He was a great guy. You couldn't ask for a better guy on and off duty. And he will always be remembered by his own merit as a man." His death was a shock to our small, close-knit community. A local policeman killed well protected the town he loved and lived in. His legacy lives on through the name of my elementary school, the William E. Sheehan Elementary School. Thank you all very much. To close off, I'd like to dedicate my book, A Legacy Not Forgotten, to Ms. Evans as a second copy to their library in the Sheehan Center.
Thank you, Bridget. That was really well done. Thank you. And I think we have,
So my name is Ashley Eady, and I'm actually the volunteer support specialist for Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts. I'm quickly just going to recognize Bridget for all that she has done, and I'm going to pin her as well as present her with her certificate of award. So again, I do want to thank all of you for allowing me to be here this evening. It is an honor for me to be able to join you to recognize Bridget for her completion of her Gold Award. The Girl Scout Gold Award represents the highest achievement in Girl Scouting. It recognizes girls in grades 9 through 12 who demonstrate extraordinary leadership through sustainable, measurable, take action projects. Starting in 1916, the best and brightest undertook projects that improved their communities and the world. The Golden Eaglet insignia, the highest award in Girl Scouting from 1916 to 1939, marked the beginning of a long tradition of recognizing the extraordinary efforts of girls. From 1940 to 1963, the curved bar was the highest honor in Girl Scouting. From 1963 to 1980, the highest award was called First Class. Since 1980, the Gold Award has inspired girls to find the greatness inside themselves and share their ideas and passions with their communities. Girls who go for the Gold Award are a part of an extraordinary group of elite young women. So Gold Award projects address a wide range of issues, from poverty to health to community history, the environment, and children. And before a girl can work on her Gold Award project, she must successfully complete a number of requirements that help her to develop skills and knowledge. So with everything else that competes with a girl's time, it says so much about the determination she has to accomplish all that goes into a Gold Award project. So today, we recognize our Gold Awardee, Bridget, by providing her with her Gold Award pin and special recognitions from many individuals and organizations, including Girl Scouts of USA, Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, the United States military, the Department of Human Health Services, NASA, the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the National Park Services, the White House, governor, both Massachusetts senators, and you will have certificates from all of these locations. Bridget, please, I want to pin you, and on behalf of the Girl Scouts of Eastern Massachusetts, we send our sincerest congratulations on your outstanding achievement with demonstrated leadership, a passion to impact your community, a commitment to excellence, and in doing so, you exemplify the ideals of the Girl Scout promise and law. And so welcome to the elite world of Girl Scout and Gold Award that is nationally recognized. Thank you. Congratulations.
Bridget, we're not the president of centers, but we're... Yeah, congratulations. This is just a certificate for us, and we're really proud of your accomplishments, and you want to take a picture with you too? This is great, thanks for coming, great job.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. Yeah, we appreciate it. Great job.
Yes.
What grade are you in?
I'm senior.
Oh, wow. Where are
We
you
had
going
next
to
year.
school?
Eastern Nazarene.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you so
Thanks
much.
for coming.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Right, one more, just actually, just one more quick recognition. This is Meredith's last meeting of the year, unless you want to come back again. But Meredith, it's been great to have you.
Thank
Been
you.
a great contributor, and we really appreciate everything. We wish you the best of luck. BC, right?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I am. We're coming straight from across the
We won, I'm sure.
We
right?
did, yes.
Okay, is that, oh, we have more in the video.
Two more quick things. Actually, I have on this superintendent for an update from the Space and Capital
Right.
Needs Study forum we had last week. I don't really have much of an update actually, but I just want to acknowledge that we did have a forum.
Yeah,
We had about 30 residents attend, which is
pretty good.
30 more than,
Right.
30 people didn't know stuff before they came, which is great. So I think our next steps as a committee is to determine next steps. And I don't need to kick the can, but hopefully by June we can kind of put our brains together to see what a logical sequence of next steps would be.
So it'll be on our calendar.
Yeah, I think it needs to be on the calendar. I think Joseph, you made the point last week, you should be on the agenda pretty much every meeting for the foreseeable future. So that's really it on that tonight. But I think it was pretty good for restart. And then finally, we received over the last couple of months some correspondence from a family about school start times and meaning, should we move the school start time, especially at the high school, later? And it's been a topic of a lot of media attention, and I know some of you probably get questions about it. I'll say this, it's a loaded issue. A lot of pros, a lot of challenges. And so I don't know if you would like us to do maybe sort of a quick update on it at a future meeting.
I would.
Emily and I have talked.
I would. Yeah.
So at a minimum, maybe in June we'll come to you with
Yeah,
just a brief overview of kind of the issues.
Of the issues and of what other school districts close by have already started that for us. And maybe we can incorporate into that something about hockey, playing like when they practice. Does that sound like something you guys want to talk about?
Absolutely.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, we need to get better ice time. It's been
Yes, we
ridiculous
do.
for years.
And maybe we
Practice
can
time
look
is
at,
great.
to see, I think Canton is building in there, maybe we can talk to them before the next meeting to see if there's any opportunity to get later start time. Okay. Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, public participation. Is there any at this point? Okay, moving right along, discussion items. So we have a presentation by Eric Arnold, the Executive Director of HALE, on the development of the Innovation School.
Biggest problem is I don't get an award or anything.
Come back next time.
So, Eric, so we welcome Eric. I'm going to sort of just turn it over to Eric and sort of describe what we're doing here tonight. But thank you for coming. We
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. So as I get started, we've been involved in the project at HALE for a little while. I've had a couple conversations with John and Emily about it over the last 3-4 months. And I think as we talked about it more, we've been curious about a possibility of working with Westwood with our project. And I think tonight the intent is to just sort of see, is this something that we should continue to pursue? Is there something there to work with as we go forward? So I'll run through where we are with this project, and then at the end, obviously questions and discussion about it. HALE has set a goal a few years ago to expand our year-round program. We've often been known as a big summer slot for kids for summer camps. We began that process about 8-9 years ago, really focusing on this, and in 2 ways working on that. First has been to partner with schools to bring kids out there for school programs, focus on how we can supplement curriculum. We've been doing that for a long time. We now have about 8,000 kids that come through from September to June. So our partnerships with schools is very rich. It continues to grow, but it's a really key component of growth. The second part of that goal was really to establish a semester school program that we could have kids really experience HALE in a more intense, long-term way, and not have it just sort of either a day or two as a field trip or a summer experience only. To do that, there were 3 things that were happening somewhat simultaneously this past fall. One of them was we as an organization were looking into how we could do this. We were beginning the planning processes for this. The second thing that was happening was 2 BPS teachers were in the midst of planning something very similar. We didn't realize this. We happened to be working with them on a separate project, and somehow the conversation came up and we said, wait, you guys are thinking of this, we've been talking about this, and at the same time, the Boston Public Schools put out a call for innovation. And that call for innovation was for organizations that were looking into doing something that was pretty unique and different and really would provide schools with the kids in Boston a real unique educational opportunity. So we got involved in that process, and I think you all received our proposal that we submitted to the Boston Public Schools in late February, early February, late January. We submitted that concept paper to the schools. That was accepted and approved, and we were asked to move to the next step and submit a prospectus in June. So we're in the process now of designing the full prospectus document. And that would go to the Boston Public School Committee by the end of June for review. Final design plans are due in October, which results in an approval in November, and then an opening in the fall of 2017. A little more about what this would mean. What it would mean is that HALE would operate a Boston Public School Innovation School. It would be an innovation school. This is a category of schools, if you're not quite familiar with this, which I wasn't entirely when I began, that is state recognized and it comes from a district. What I liked about this, and this is where I've always been attracted to this concept, and from when we started, we really liked the idea of an urban-suburban mix. That was a key belief that we thought would be very powerful. How we would do it, to be determined, but we felt that that component of things could be really valuable for kids, both urban kids having that suburban connection and vice versa. What's interesting about the process of innovation schools, as it does say in the guidelines for it, that there is multiple districts can work together to establish an innovation school that would serve students from different communities. So with that in mind, we began thinking, is there a way that this project could link 2 districts and develop something pretty unique? So I'll get into more about what this is. Intrepid Academy, as it's been called, it's really intrepid, being characterized by resolute fearlessness, fortitude, and endurance. We've often used a similar concept to grit that we hear talked about so commonly these days. But this idea that we can develop students who really want to drive towards something. The way the program is being designed, and I say being designed because we're in the middle of writing that prospectus today. Things are things are evolving as we go along. We keep having our design team meetings, and as we go through that, we make tweaks and changes. But today, we see there's 40 to 60 students who come for a semester of their junior year. It's a day program. Again, asked that a lot, is this resident or not? It's a day program. And it's modeled after a bunch of other programs that are out there. It's different, but it's modeled after others. Concord Carlisle Public Schools has a Rivers of Revolution program, which is somewhat similar. Newton has the Global Education program, where students participate in a semester program. The Chewonki Maine Coast semester. There's a bunch of others. We're all going to go visit the Island School for research because we want to. There are programs very much like this that focus on. In fact, there's an association of semester schools that's out there that provides resources to groups that do this specifically. A little more information. 3 themes in the program. One is outdoors. That we know learning can happen outdoors, but when kids are outdoors, they start to realize that academics and education can happen beyond sort of the 4 walls of what we get used to as the classroom. And in addition, we believe firmly that this generation needs more connection to nature. I'll get to that a little bit later. That's a key element of our philosophy. Secondly, that kids being active is really good. Physical activity stimulates and jumpstarts learning. It helps us build self-esteem and a long-term commitment to healthy living. The third component is that we believe personalized learning is really key. I've been fortunate enough to be a part of the SIP program the last few years, a mentor, and you can see how that matters for kids. And hearing from a student the other night at the closing ceremony that she chose her college because of her SIP experience really tells you that this is where kids get motivated when they've got that opportunity to do something that means a lot to them. So personalized learning is a key component to the design. It is a program that would have required courses. These are courses that actually, as of now, are preset design courses in the Boston Public School curriculum. There is a psychology course, which sort of fits the social sciences, environmental science, which is obviously a science course, and then algebra, calculus, humanities, fitness conditioning. And then there'd be an elective component where kids would either emphasize either more on a health and exercise science, or would be doing a Spanish program. Advisory is a key component too as well. Schedule, as it's outlined at this point, would be something along the lines of 18 total weeks would be the program, 10 to 12 weeks of really intense guide-led. I use the term guide because we're not using the word teacher or faculty member. In this program, there are guides that will be working with small groups of 10 students each. That instruction then will be followed by an intensive student-centered inquiry into something that is really of their passion. There will be autonomy. Dr. Antonucci just mentioned start time of the day. This program will start later in the day. There are autonomies that we will be asking for from the Boston Public Schools that will require it to be structured very differently than what's typical, including things like overnights, where faculty will be doing overnights through semester. Assessment, it will be rigorous. It will be a diverse set of methods to assess the students, everything from tests. While the tests will eventually help to determine grades, the primary focus is to measure progress of mastery. There will be something not unlike the SIP process, but talks where kids are presenting their findings and learnings, both in the Hale community, but also their school communities where they come from. Digital portfolios, sending school back to sending schools. And then we're working with, there's a real initiative for some digital badging for non-academic skill acquisition, things like leadership, how kids can develop that skill, go through a process for that, and receive a digital badging process for that. So that's something else we're working on at this point. There are 3 key things we're working to combat in this program. One of those is this one, which every time I look at it, it's sort of cringe, but we've all seen this and heard this, that big section is the recreational media time. And we know that this generation will be the least connected to nature than any other generation, including history. You think about the amount of time that kids are not spending outdoors, there's that little green sliver which is outdoor time. And we know, but yet we know that opportunities to be outside are incredibly healthy. And so this is an important component of it. We know that when you're outside, these health benefits happen, and it reduces stress, which leads to one of our second things. We consistently hear about teen stress when teens and adults are asked to measure stress on a 10-point scale. Adults will both measure about 3.75 is where they like their stress level to be. Interestingly enough, youth say it's even higher than adult stress, and that continues in the summer months for kids. They continue to say the stress levels are higher in the summer than they would like. In addition, with the stress component of things, there's this great new study that just came out from Stanford University about getting outside in nature and walking. Getting outside, we know, and moving stimulates brain activity. But when you compare walking in a wooded environment versus being in an urban environment, stress decreases 50% more when you're outdoors in a wooded environment than if you walk in an urban environment. They walk down, and those of us who know Stanford, they walk down Palo Alto, the streets of Palo Alto, or walk in the woods in Stanford, and they studied over multiple years that people who walked in the woods were less stressful, oddly enough, after they walked in those who walked in the streets. But that's what we think is important, that kids start to realize that this is a resource for how to manage their personal health in the future as well. So this is a key element of the program. The last thing is a passion, developing that real passion for learning that comes with personalized learning. And study after study has shown when kids really work hard on their personal passion, their commitment to the work and the performance improves. So I went through that pretty quickly on purpose. I figured there's questions. I will say overall, Hale is incredibly excited to be working with the Boston Public Schools in this project. I personally have felt like there's this nice match. We are so close, we're obviously doing Westwood. But I think that Westwood offers amazing things for kids, but there are other little things that could help enhance what is offering for the students. So, questions, comments, discussions? I'm sure.
When in the school year would this take place?
It would happen to be a fall semester and a spring semester. So there would be a cohort of kids that would start in September and go through, when was the semester? In January. Sometime in January. And then another cohort that would start in the spring.
And how does that impact junior year as a 10th year? There were lots of AP courses being taken and so forth.
So, we've thought about that a little bit. You see the numbers that we're talking about.
Right.
So it would be a pretty small number potentially from Westwood. And clearly it would be a choice. It would be a choice that a kid made to have this experience for a semester of junior year. We think what we would do is, we've changed some programming recently to have more semester-based electives for senior year. So it might be a situation where a kid would effectively do Hale one semester and then have some senior electives that year and then take things that are typically taken junior year as a senior. That would be one way to go about it.
How's it affect college? College, how are you going to do that?
Yeah. Well, I will say, I think that Eric would agree that the target population here isn't necessarily the high-flying AP student. This is not necessarily an alternative to that program. At the other end of the spectrum, it's also not intended for kids who are struggling in school. It's the middle, a whole bunch of other.
So how do you?
I'm sorry.
I just have one more question.
Yeah.
What kind of involvement are you asking for from Westwood? Aside from sending the kids, what do you need?
Well, I think I don't know that we totally.
We don't know yet.
We don't know. I think what we want to know is whether or not there's a, what's that?
We can give you that.
Yeah. Whether or not there's an interest in us spending some time to really figure this out and come back and say, this would be the involvement. There's a variety of ways this could play out. I'm not sure I know all the details yet of exactly how it works, but is this something that the school committee thinks, yeah, let's spend some energy and effort on trying to figure out if this could be available to students in Westwood?
Is this something that will be like per pupil cost? Is that how we would?
Again, we just don't know. Those are all great questions, but they're outstanding that we haven't been able to track down.
I can share a little bit in Boston. There's, and this is obviously a big district, very different situation. They have some funding set aside for innovation programs. So we would receive some of that funding. But I think in Boston, there's also, in some cases, the schools would, some of the funding to come from the schools. instead of their amount, like they do a chart of the monies on.
Right,
So in some cases that would happen in Boston, but we don't know.
how that would work.
Yeah.
It could be shared staff. I mean, there's a lot of
Oh,
different,
okay.
there's a lot of
Could be
different
sh-
ways
could
that
be
we
shared
might be
staff.
connected, or theoretically could be connected that way.
But we won't be getting into any choice issues, right? Choice,
Wouldn't affect us, per se. I mean,
No, we're not sending our kids to
Well,
another.
Well, it just, I mean, I don't know.
You know what I mean?
Depends,
Is it
yeah.
impacting the choice question that we?
No, it
No, I
doesn't
don't-
impact
no,
us at all.
okay.
This is, your choice question is about,
Yeah.
do you want to take kids?
Right,
to
right,
us?
but I mean,
Doesn't impact.
do they have?
It's not a choice
It's not a
situation,
choice,
it's an
it's-
innovation
it's-
school, charterish. Yeah.
So in terms of curriculum,
Yes.
you mentioned several different possible courses, I think it's psychology, dental, physiology, I can't remember what the other ones were. Tell me how that breakdown would be. Are you talking about kids, they would learn several of those courses throughout the semester, or is there a breakdown and they would choose one course?
They would take a typical sort of 5-class, they would have 5 to 6 different courses. I mean, some of those, I say 5, some of them, advisory,
Okay.
phys ed, so they'd be getting credit in specific course areas that would be in the very traditional English language arts, math and science.
And so since you have such a small number though, they would all be taking the same classes together,
Pretty much,
right?
yes.
So they would all have the same schedule?
Well, yeah.
Basic, I mean, I know it's
Yes.
not, it's rough right now.
Yes, right.
All right, so now, I was reading in here about how the classes are taught outdoors. How do you attract a staff? And we have very high expectations here in Westwood. I'm not saying that outdoor people aren't, I mean, how do you get a staff who's willing to work outdoors when we have some difficult weather here in New England? But you want to ensure that it's not just they're not just physically robust, but also have the
Mental fortitude.
academic.
Oh, the academic, right,
Yes.
right.
Well, they do have buildings though, I mean.
Well, I know.
So there's a couple things about that.
Yeah.
First of all, as I mentioned earlier, there are 2 teachers who were interested in doing this. Those 2 teachers are key people in this process. They intend to be the faculty. They both are over 10-year teachers in Boston Public Schools. One of them was their teacher of the year 1 year, and they have approval from the principals that they would now be 2 of the faculty members of this program. So they're certified, both of them are dual certification. I think one of them is triple.
Yeah, I will chime in. I've met these 2 individuals in a couple of meetings to talk about curriculum possibilities, and they are impressive people. Yes,
So
very.
what's the outdoor experience when it's January, February, March, it's 8 degrees and 8 inches of snow?
It's they're indoors. It's really bad. They're indoors.
How's that not just doing the school?
Well, because the other activities they're doing are quite different. It's a different space, and they're in and out of that building all the time, and moving between spaces in a very different environment. And so there would be days where they would be inside. There's no question. You can't deny New England that would happen. But the majority of their program would be different. The other piece that I think is really valuable is they'd be a small cohort of kids who have a very unique experience.
So how many are we talking about?
46.
But
Oh,
they
from
were
Westwood.
Westwood.
I think we're talking 15, 10, 15, 18.
And what would be, how, again, these are questions that we don't necessarily have answers to.
Yeah,
but
right.
How would you determine? I mean, let's take the SIP program, for example. We started out very small and it took off. And perhaps this could be a similar scenario. How would you choose? Suppose you have 40 kids who are interested. And how do you advise or determine which kids are appropriate for this type of program? And then it also begs the question, okay, suppose you have kids that are really interested, will it for sure, let's say they determine that they really are college bound, and they decide, you know what, I do want to push for college or for a particular college or whatever. How will this translate? Will it translate okay?
That's a good question. I just want to point out though, I mean, so he put a couple examples of other districts, like Newton, for example.
Yeah.
Newton sends dozens, I think, of kids off to semester programs every year. They go to the Island School, they had a friend who, his daughter went to Colorado this year, and so we don't think this is going to be necessarily for the high flyers, like he was saying, but if a student today decided to go to a semester school, They could
And
go.
I'm not
you know?
disparaging this
No, I
at
know,
all,
yeah.
but these are the types of questions I can hear from parents saying, wow, my kid is really interested in this program, we like to be a part of it, but what if that's not the path they want and the semester's
Well, that's why
gone?
we have guidance counselors, right?
Mhm.
So I think, it's another arrow in the quiver of a guidance counselor for some kids for whom this might be the perfect match to offer or to at least explore, So I think there's something about that with a robust guidance department like we have, that I would trust that they would help kids determine those things with parent input. So I think if nothing else, it's worth dialogue, right?
Right.
You might want guidance input in that process because they know all that college stuff inside out.
It was interesting, I was at Boston Public School this morning, and I was meeting with their headmaster, assistant, and we were talking about this, and they were really good idea. We went down to one of the classrooms, and they started talking about the teachers who they figured would be a key person in this exact conversation with Jennifer and kids. He was teaching his class, and they were all doing, it was seniors, they were doing independent work at this time, and he said, wait a minute, let's just, and he brought the whole class together and said, I'm going to describe a scenario to you guys. How many of you would do this? And we ended up with a student discussion about this. And they were asking, well, what would happen with this? And would I miss that? And what happened with the group is, as you're sort of saying, there was a group at the beginning, which was about 20, who were like, come in. And after a while, some were like, oh, I wouldn't do it. I want to play football. Okay, that's good. And at the end, there were about 6 kids who were like, I would have loved this. I worked on a farm one summer, and I did this would have like been my perfect thing. And that's what sort of happened in this process. And so,
Well, it's interesting because when I first talked to John about this, it was at least a couple of years ago, we were visiting Hale and we mentioned that, right? This has been a...
Not,
No?
I think it was like a dream.
Not
like
to
a
the,
dream
but it was
thing.
a dream thing.
It's a
And what
dream
I
thing,
was
yeah.
thinking of was that it would be an opportunity for many different Westwood High School students to maybe take a course over there and would have this, so the opportunity would be there for more kids. So you were taking, physiology at Hale for the semester, and that would be,
That's not.
but that's not,
That's not.
yeah.
When are you
but I-
thinking of implementing?
2017. And again, I will say something like this. We
So
are
a year from now?
No, next.
fall.
About a year from, yeah.
Yes, so a year and a half.
Yeah,
essentially,
well, a year.
right? Full school year.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I will say, this is a process that has to, for BPS, we submit the next round. On June 30th, they could say, that was nice, forget it.
Right.
And so we could be saying, okay, well, we're not moving forward, we gotta keep finding another way to try and implement this. Maybe it's more with Westwood or whatever, but, so it could stop fairly quickly, but the indication, we got a call, Mayor called the other day, one of the teachers said, I heard about your school, this is really exciting. We're feeling pretty good that this has, and we've got a bunch of principals who really want to see their students have this opportunity.
Eric, just to clarify, I mean, we're really excited about it, but they don't need us to go forward.
That was
That's a good
Yeah.
point. That's a good
So,
point.
yeah.
So there's that possibility that you could run this program, and then we see kind of how it plays, and then if we have, is that a bad thing? I don't know.
Do we not have something come out
The
of it?
first year that you have this program, you see how it rolls, and then we endorse, I don't know, endorse students.
I think, I don't know, you're right, that's definitely a possibility. I think there are other ways to explore the relationship. The other piece is, once we get our approval for the innovation part and have submitted all of our pieces, I don't know how much, I don't know if we can add another district. It's an unknown, maybe we can. So I think it's either a 3 or a 5-year approval and evaluations throughout that process. And then I don't know if you can say, well, now we're adding another district
Right.
midstream to.
I think it would be nice being on the ground floor myself. And I think also that, it's ultimately going to be up to the parents to decide whether or not the kids should go, even if, the kid thinks it's a great program, the parents is going to say, well, wait a minute. Meredith, do you have something?
Yeah, I'd just like to add, I think the thing that makes this a good idea for a semester program is that it is a day program, as opposed to some other schools. I know I have a couple friends who went down to the Island School last year, I guess.
Did you get to visit?
And unfortunately, I wish. But they sort of came back, and they were really isolated down there for the entire semester. But with this program, you're still able to maintain some normalcy because you're living at home. And also from like a college application standpoint, you're still probably able to do like SAT prep outside of school, but you can still have an alternate learning experience.
Well, we're lucky, it's right in our backyard.
Yeah, and it's close to home, yeah.
Do we have any other questions?
So I guess my only other comment would be helpful to learn more about Conquer and Newton, at least maybe purchase my education. And the other thing I'd like to see is better defining who the target population is, because that's a little bit nebulous to me. Westwood has a very different population than the Boston Public Schools, rightly or wrongly, so we just need to be cognizant of that as well.
Yeah, I think as we put together our next preparation, we read a draft. I was looking through a draft of our prospectus right now, and in it, there's this asterisk next to a few things. Is Westwood, are we going to be mentioning Westwood or not type thing? And it changes a whole series of things if we are. And so we were just sort of having this conversation the other day. So I think you're right on to it, and that's the work we have to do. And that's kind of the question here is, should we continue this dialogue? Should Emily, John, and I keep having this conversation about honing in on this? And if there's an appetite for it, yes, and then we come back again and we say, here's where we are, and there's a chance to say, we don't like it now, or we do like it, and keep going.
When do you think you'd be back?
No, I think, so we submit this in June. I think we will have much more defined at that point. It would be a good time. But I think we'd have to wait and see how much we can iron out in that next month and a half or so. I think it would have to be sometime in the summer.
I would just throw in, for what it's worth, that, you know, the conversations that we've been having with Eric about this and the teachers bring together a lot of themes for me that we keep talking about. So we keep talking about social emotional health and well-being. Okay? We keep talking about the idea of authentic engagement in learning. We keep talking about, you know, are we providing opportunities for all the kids in our school? And, you know, those are the conversations that we keep having. And it's not that this is suddenly going to take care of all of those issues, but it feels like sort of one interesting and action-oriented thing that we could do that will make it interesting. So, I mean, 1,000 details to be worked out, but I guess we're just, you know, we're curious if it's something that we should keep having conversations.
Well, I personally think it sounds like something we should definitely explore. What do you think?
Tell me is deeply skeptical.
Oh,
You know what? Those are the best people because that keeps us honest. I like that.
You know, if you have more information later, fine.
Carol?
No, I would like to, I do have some skepticism as well, but I'm very interested in it. I do love the whole idea. And so I do want to hear more, but.
Tony?
Yeah, I'd love to hear more. I think the wait and see attitude.
I just need to add one thing, just something I want to say this while Eric's here. At some point, I'll do something more, I might have to do something more formal, but I need to informally disclose. My wife is the president of the Hale Board of Directors. But I think it's important to acknowledge that we've been partners with Hale from well before I got into this position. But that being said, I'm the superintendent, she's the president of the board this year. And so at some point, I probably will actually file some formal disclosure, even though it's not like money's exchanging hands, but I just want to acknowledge that.
While we're disclosing, I would mention that, so I have volunteered to be part of the curriculum design advisory group just as a civic volunteer because it's something I'm interested in the evenings, not necessarily in my role.
Now, and I like to take all the days.
Anybody else have anything else? Paul's out.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Eric.
I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, moving right
Okay,
ahead.
your lacrosse practice.
Yeah, I've got to say,
Yeah.
you started at 8 o'clock, so
I guess
thank you all.
the next thing on the agenda is,
Nice to see you, Chris.
oh, hi, Chris. Findings and recommendations from the science curriculum.
So we actually have a team here tonight, led by Alice, and I'll let her kind of do intros while I get her stuff.
So this is I'll show you in a moment. We had a very large team of people, including people in the group today. I'll introduce you the whole crew, but helping out with presenting this evening. We have Dan Kieran from the middle school, Mary O'Toole from Martha Jones, Christine McMahon from the high school, Becky Green from the high school, and Sarah from the high school. And I think Excellent. So we are just about a year from when we started this process, last April, last May. We started forming a committee, and I first of all want to thank you for letting us come here and show you a little bit what we've been up to and what we're recommending to move forward. This is the whole team, and all their names are up there. I do want to mention a little bit about representation. In addition to having folks who were science teachers from the high school and the middle school, we had elementary teachers, we had an ELL teacher, we had our director of special education, a literacy specialist, and a school community member. Two of our folks were actually wearing dual hats as educators or educational leaders in the community and parents who have kids in public schools. Also worth noting that 2 members actually have children in the middle of this process. So we're not around this stuff. It was a really great group of folks, and they did some kind of fantastic work. So I want to acknowledge everybody for that. I'm going to show you some things about vision. Really, one of the first phases of this process was to think about a vision for where we want to see science education in Westwood in 3 to 5 years. And I really asked people to think very visually. You know, what would it look like when you walk into a science classroom? What are you going to see? And the great news is that some of what we came up with, there are things that are actually already happening in small pieces and pockets all over the place in the schools, so I can show them to you. And what we want to do is make this to be more of what happens in Westwood. So you'll see some slides up here. I'm going to read off to you because I think it's a great statement of where we want to be. Students in the Westwood Public Schools engage in an inquiry-based approach to science. They ask good questions, and the systematic pursuit of answers leads them to more questions. Students work in teams to observe and analyze, design and refine, and they use a wide array of technologies and tools to support their creations and investigations. Students discover and draw on the connections among the sciences, as well as the connections between science and other disciplines. In addition to learning science concepts, they learn to think, listen, read, write, and speak like scientists. Most importantly, students enjoy exploring their world and universe through science. They follow the trail of their curiosity as they investigate questions and problems that matter both locally and globally. And we wrote it down. I thought that was a great sort of notion of what science education really should be about. And it was a fun group of people to work with because I think it all kept kind of coming back to this idea of kids kind of rolling up their sleeves and getting things done in a hands-on way where their questions and their curiosity was a big driving class. I'm not going to spend a ton of time talking about process because talking about process is boring, but I will give you the sense it's basically the same process that all reviews go through. We start off with the development of the vision and some guiding questions. We do our research and then we draft some recommendations. We did have fun in parts of the research phase. You'll notice this is a picture of some of our elementary reps. It's couple elementary teachers are ELL coordinator from the elementary school, and this is actually at the Needham Science Center, which is one of the places we visited. Needham has a kind of great resource for their elementary schools. It's a science center that's embedded within one of the elementary schools that provides sort of resources and curriculum leadership to all 5 or 7. I'm not sure. There are a bunch of schools. Whole bunch of schools in Needham, and they do a great job. So we got to go check it out, see how it's structured. I'd say one other thing that was interesting or different about this process is that first item there. We really did spend a lot of time and energy thinking about and looking at student feedback. We wanted to know from the student's perspective what works for them, what makes them excited about and engaged in science, what's most memorable about their experiences. So we conducted surveys and focus groups at every level. So even elementary kids were telling us a little bit about what they liked and what they thought was most interesting. For recommendations, I'm going to give you some of the district-wide big picture things. I'll invite up our elementary colleagues to talk about the elementary piece. Dan's going to give us a rundown on the middle school. Becky's going to talk about high school, and then I'll wrap up with the next one. A little bit about how it goes. We decided that it was best to have fewer recommendations that we think we can actually get done. So this is what we're hoping for. First of all, we found, and this is a big piece of news, in January of this year, the state adopted new standards in science, technology, and engineering. And our first big recommendation is we need to get ourselves those standards. And we'd like to do so with fidelity. We want to make sure that we are really truly lined up because that has implications for how our students perform on different standardized assessments, which is not the most exciting thing in the world, but it is a measure by which our school system is evaluated by outside folks. It also positions our kids to move, if they move from this district to another, to be lined up with where they're going to be in their next district. And similarly, as students come to us, we want to make sure they're on track. Another thing we ended up talking about, computer science, which is this weird thing that we're not really sure what it goes, kind of fits in the science department, it's sort of mathy, it's kind of its own thing. And our initial sense was computer science is happening, but it's happening a little haphazardly. And it's an elective at the high school, we're just rolling something out in middle school, it's kind of woven in different ways beyond elementary school. The good news is there are kind of more defined standards that are on their way. There's a draft form of the state. There's going to be a little clarity about what that looks like. How to implement that is a big question, and I think what we came to is if we recommended anything, it was going to be something like we should do more computer science, but without a lot of kind of knowledge or insight about how and when it's going to take place. So our sense is this really needs its own review. It needs a team of people who really understand and know the landscape of computer science to think about where it fits. For example, is it going to be its own department with a department head at the high school or something? Is that the direction the university is heading? There was some great work done a couple of years ago on a vision for technology use in the district that led along with, we had an outside consultant that helped us, and I think that's a nice building block to make this next piece work. Another key finding is that communication between and among levels and buildings needs some work. So our elementary schools have pretty different things going on in different buildings. There's not a lot of points of communication between the elementary and middle with regard to science. There is some between middle and high school, but it tends to be really focused on the placement process as opposed to curriculum and instruction and kind of the meat of what happens. And our critical recommendation, which actually you've already started to help us with, is to create a vertical leadership team, including an elementary coordinator, a middle school coordinator, and a high school department head. We've done that in English and math, and it's really paid off in terms of helping us sort of get that big picture and make sure that things like recommendations from this review get implemented, which actually leads to final kind of district-wide recommendations. We noticed way back in 2008, which is the last time a recommendation series came out, some really interesting things were in there that just never got done. We think a piece of that puzzle is that leadership team. And we're hoping that that team's going to do the work of kind of creating a good process for communicating out what these recommendations are and a plan for implementing. We've sketched out some timelines and things, but really the real work is yet to come. So that's kind of the big picture of the district. I'm going to hand it off to elementary colleagues, so Mary O'Toole and Sarah. We did see, you'll see more recommendations out of the elementary than in any other place. And that has to do with that change in standards. That has a lot of implications that just sort of roll out. Take it away.
It's great to be here tonight. First finding, new standards include significant changes in content is a big one. This impacts our teachers at every elementary grade level because they're going to be asked to do new science instruction. And that means new learning, taking new risks, getting new materials. And they always say when you have new curriculum, it takes you about 3 years before you really have mastered it. So that's a good thing. It's also important for our children because not only do we want them to really know the science content, but they're going to be applying it in a lot of very exciting ways. They'll be making more observations, collecting data, stating claims, building models. It's very, very exciting as far as the prospects go. For example, in 4th grade, we did this amazing oximeter Zoom, and aside from just having the kids understand erosion and maybe going out and looking at it, they'll have to try and explain how it has changed the landscape. They'll have a chance to collect some data on it. They'll have a chance to read some great readings and some non-fiction text. We've been well versed now thanks to our math coaches on math practices. There are science practices that we will be asking questions, finding problems, developing and using models. planning and carrying out investigations, analyzing and interpreting data, using math and computation thinking, constructing explanations and designing solutions, engaging in an argument. And so once they have this wonderful, these concepts, they have to make claims and then back up those claims with evidence.
So our recommendation is to provide teachers with high-quality professional development to enable them to bring students to that high level. So what does high-quality professional development look like? It's differentiated. So teachers at the elementary level, most of them came in because they love to teach. So they know how to teach reading, and they know how to teach writing, and they know how to teach math. Most of them did not come in with a strong science background. So we want to get teachers up to speed across the board. Where the science concepts are now is moving as a result of these standards. So we need to get them really secure with the content, the concepts, and the pedagogy that goes along with bringing kids to that level. So we want to make sure that they can deepen and strengthen their understanding and knowledge of the concepts. And we want to make sure that part of the PD allows them to actually create these inquiry-based units, experiment with it themselves so that they can then lead students to do the experimentation as well.
And then another finding is the engineering experiences that our children have in inquiry-based learning is limited and it's also very varied. Thanks to a Westwood Educational Foundation grant, every elementary grade level has one engineering unit. But again, it goes back to the training and the support for the teachers to have that unit and then to use it with the inquiry-based learning. That's the most exciting type of learning, but the teacher has, if you will, least amount of control. It's all in the hands of the children, asking the right question, and going with what they provide you. And again, that takes more and more practice. So we found that there was some variation on each school and each grade level.
And so the recommendation is to move from one engineering unit at each grade level to an engineering unit for each topic of study, so that students have multiple opportunities to engineer throughout their academic experience.
Another finding is that the amount of time that we do in science instruction at the elementary level falls short. When we recommended time for pre-K to grade 2 would be 2 hours, grade 3 to 5, 3 hours.
Do you know what it is currently?
There's discrepancies.
And not
Yes.
that. Not that. It's less than that.
Okay.
Right, we have blocks, 45-minute blocks, 4 days a week that we alternate social studies and science.
Yes.
And it's at the discretion of the teacher.
Yes.
And you know what it is? We have done such a phenomenal job in our ELA, our reading workshop, our writing workshop, and our math. And we have spent a lot of time with these units of study. So quite frankly, we need to really, the idea is to rethink our time, our allotment of time to be creative with it, to be more thematic with it, more efficient with it. And that time means preparation. It means the professional development, best practice. It means the setup of the materials, and it also means the implementation. And also for teachers to feel comfortable letting a lesson go longer, you know, and this inquiry learning takes more time.
So the recommendation is for each elementary school to reorganize their schedule to provide these longer blocks of time for the science inquiry. We're already doing a really good job of embedding our nonfiction reading into literacy and our nonfiction writing into our writing class. Now we need to give them time to muck around with the experiments and really get their hands dirty.
Yes, and then that leads us to the next finding. And particularly when people work here. I just found this so interesting. We have already started, these students increased focus on nonfiction reading and writing. And many teachers have already started collecting beautiful nonfiction resources for their science unit. Our elementary libraries are amazing. The nonfiction texts that are in our libraries. Any teacher can go to the reading specialist, tell them what the next unit is, and before you know it, you have all kinds of nonfiction titles ready to go. As we learn about the new science standards, we're asking kids and teachers to build a strong base of knowledge through these rich contexts, nonfiction texts. We want our students to read, write, and speak grounded in evidence, knowing their science concepts and being able to apply them. We want them to construct viable arguments and critique the reasoning of others. So if there's one child who volunteers an idea or has a theory or a claim, or another child who might rebuttal that, and then give them that chance to back up their claims, which would be very exciting. We have spent a lot of time, again, in our unity study with reading and writing. So now it's time to spend time with our science.
So the recommendation there is to really continue that integration of science with literacy. So we've got our literacy coordinator, we're hopefully going to have our science coordinator. We want them to work together to coordinate and to collaborate so that the nonfiction reading is embedded into reading, they're writing about science, they're doing the hands-on, and that all kind of fits together and makes sense in that context. Another recommendation to come out of this finding is Mary mentioned the beautiful nonfiction resources that we have. We want to inventory what we have, analyze what's good, and we want to make sure that we purchase nonfiction texts connected to science concepts at each grade level, and that we provide resources at a variety of reading levels so that kids on any reading level can access them.
In math and literacy, students' learning experiences throughout the district are more consistent and they're better aligned to the standards. And that's thanks to the great leadership that we have. We have wonderful literacy coaches and math coaches. They're there for their teachers. They inspire us by helping us provide best practice. They give us the most recent resources, the best research. They're also there for our students, giving them wonderful instruction and support. We now need to spend that time in science, and quite frankly, we don't have that leadership.
So that's the recommendation, is we're going to build that leadership team with a science coordinator, specialist, and then we really need to empower the teacher leaders in each building. Those teachers that are already passionate about science, get them to be part of this leadership team so that we can really do it across the elementary schools.
So you're suggesting new positions?
No, well, the positions that were already funded.
So
aside from the science coordinator, are there other new positions that you're?
Not for next year.
No, not
So
for next
so
year,
this is
but
a
going
great first
forward.
step. We're going to have
Okay.
a full-time coordinator and content specialist, and then another half-time science content specialist.
And then at each building, we're hoping to kind of tap people on the shoulder who are already showing an interest in science and empower them to be building leaders. Part of the leadership team, but at the building level.
It's going to be part of the first work that the coordinator is going to be doing hopefully over the summer, just to put together this teacher leadership team.
And then the final finding, as more and more kindergarten students come in, there's a concern that they didn't attend the last week pre-K, that they don't have that foundation, they don't have that science experience with the content that they provide.
And so our recommendation there is to reach out to our network of preschool directors within the town, communicate, collaborate with them so that kids come in with a strong foundation in kindergarten.
And you just mentioned that as part of a grant that we have from the state, this preschool directors network already exists. It's an existing group, and we already do provide some curriculum, professional development for those folks, so we'll touch on those more.
We'll turn it over to Dan here, who's going to talk about middle school.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Good evening. I have 4 findings and recommendations to share. Just like Allison was talking about earlier. There we go. The new standards came out in January. So it's kind of something that all schools are dealing with in Massachusetts. We have to align, no one's curriculum right now is really aligned with the new standards yet. So our first task is to get our curriculum aligned with the new standards. And at the middle school, we're really excited about this because the new standards that came out are based on the next generation science standards, which weave scientific practices with content together. Mary was talking earlier about the 8 scientific practices, asking questions, using data to support a claim, planning and carrying out investigations, and all the others. And these are things that we've been working on for a long time with our students, and they're part of our district determined measures already. So we're really excited that now it's actually in the standards that are coming out. So we're already getting started with kind of improving the work we do, and it's going to be lined up. It's going to take us a couple of years, but it'll be lined up with the new standards. Going along with that, our second finding was about MCAS. The MCAS scores have continued to lag behind ELA and math, as well as lagging behind comparative districts. So this is an ongoing challenge for us that we are continuing to work on. Our recommendations are, first and foremost, really focus on realignment, make sure that everything that's in the standards is something that we are emphasizing in the classroom, and working on our delivery, our instruction techniques that are representing best practices, and of course intervening with students who are not mastering the content or the skills. And we're, as usual, when the scores come out, we'll continue analyzing and just looking for new ways to approach it and continuing to improve. The third finding is our class periods at the middle school. In fact, I think almost all teachers at the middle school would agree that our class periods are too short to really be able to get deep into a topic, and especially in science, because there's materials to set up, at the beginning, there's cleanup at the end, and we want to give students enough time to collect data and start drawing conclusions instead of having to pause and go back the next day. I'm sure Wednesdays, the class periods are, I think, 37 or 39 minutes long. So our recommendation is to, of course, investigate options for longer blocks, either daily, every day if each block could be a little longer, and maybe have fewer blocks in a day, or maybe have a lab day where maybe once a week we can count on an extra long block. And the last finding is about our textbooks. I actually have one here. This one, our textbooks are really old. This one, I think this is probably 2002. I'm pretty sure. 2002 is that's the last edition. And for human biology, it's not too bad, but there have been new discoveries, and probably the new editions would have a lot more information about new cancer treatments, for example, or new technology to help people with diabetes. And there would be more into it, but certain things like astronomy textbooks are really difficult to use. They're so outdated. So our recommendation is to look into new resources, either new textbooks or digital resources that can be updated when changes happen, like when we're discovering the planet. That has to, we get really frustrated with the book you just bought and it's not including that. Or if it still says that Pluto is a planet. So this is also something that's going to take a little while. This is, the publishers are still trying to, since the new standards are just still coming out, especially in Massachusetts, it's a little different from the next generation science standard. So it's taking a little while for the publishers to produce the resources. But we're keeping an eye out for it, and we're looking for what kind of resource would be the best. And Becky's going to talk about high school.
Can I make a comment? You said, Allison, at the beginning that you decided to make fewer recommendations, but recommendations you thought you could really carry out. And I'm looking at these two and I'm thinking, so the first one has to do with changing the whole schedule. And then the second one is getting digital equipment to the whole school, which is going to be a huge funding issue. So are those issues that we can really address?
Oh, no, we have textbook budgets.
That where you could do with everything digital?
We're one-to-one.
In math, for example,
Yeah.
We just did this process and we went to, we have class sets of some textbooks, some grade levels, and I think 6th and 7th grade, but it's all online. We went to an entirely online that, it's subscription.
Still costs, but
Yeah,
still
you
costs.
still buy it.
Still buy it.
But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
still-
yeah. Yeah,
But I
publishers.
mean, is it a big, could we just do this?
Yeah, I mean, so we have a curriculum alignment budget, and whenever we're coming off a review, then the dollars get prioritized towards the recommendation of that particular review. So I have been anticipating a recommendation like this, and
But to Stepha's point, is the first one being looked at?
schedule, that is,
Going back to that.
Okay, okay.
Our schedule's kind of a mess in European investing. We've created a bit of a holding pattern just because of the population survey that we've had. We don't have a lot of room, but that's going to start changing in about 2 years. So I think we'll be well positioned to actually look at some changes that will be really beneficial for kids, not only in science, but in all the It'll be a time to do it.
So there's another question, not to be critical, but you talked about the MCAS scores being lower. Is there, what's going on? I mean, I know it's a long discussion, but I think we need is there something you could, what would be your 1 or 2 magic bullets?
Well, we've been working hard to align our curriculum for a long time. And one of the big steps we finally made this year was to start we kicked off a new course called Engineering, Computer Science and Engineering, which is great to have that. This is part of the MCAS exam, the 8th grade test. And we used to teach the engineering and technology in the classroom. All the science teachers would have, they set aside time during the school year to teach the engineering. Well, now we pull that out and it's a separate course. So there's one teacher who teaches the whole school their technology and engineering. And that frees up more time for science teachers to teach the natural sciences. We've also really, like I was talking about earlier, we've taken our philosophies that at the middle school level, at this age, it's a great time for them to start establishing the science process skills, those 8 scientific practices that, again, that Mary was reading. And the content, we want the content to come along with it, but it's been a real push we think it's really important that they learn to think like a scientist. And we've been a little bit ahead, because now the new standards are finally really incorporating those. The old frameworks from 2006 they're very content focused and not skill focused. And so now that's finally, the new standards are finally turning that way.
So if you're saying that the first objective probably will be a couple of years because you have to wait for the kids to leave, no, then we can change the schedule. But the second one is probably something, if you have the project and it's digital, do.
yes. So, I mean, we're ready and prepared. I mean, to Dan's point, we do want to make sure we don't make a huge investment in something that isn't good. And so, we do need to give the publishers a little time to catch up, and we'll, want to review the different options before making a substantial investment.
I was talking to a professor from Cambridge College. I think he's a science teacher. And he said McGraw-Hill's they're working on text that will be specific for Massachusetts science standards. Because publishers are coming out with books that for the the next generation science standards, but it'd be great to see something great for Massachusetts.
We find every time a new set of standards come out, the publishers put a sticker on the cover of whatever already existed, claiming that it's now new and improved, but we want to take a look. Okay, thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Good evening. So one of the best things that we did in the Science Curriculum Review Committee was survey students. And at the high school, we surveyed seniors. And we asked the seniors what was some of your most memorable experiences in the high school in science. What were some of the best learning experiences you had? Where do you feel you learned the most? What was the most fun? And across the board, it was experiences that were hands-on, that were lab-based, that were where students were doing projects. And it was also really where students were discovering science versus sort of confirming what teachers were telling them. And this really echoes what, as science teachers, we've been coming to, which is that we find that students are having fun but learning deeply when they're discovering science. So one of our most important recommendations is that we provide more PD for the high school science teachers to develop these approaches and the curriculums that exist. We're working on it, and we're incorporating new practices and new pedagogies, but it's something that we need more time on and would like some more resources in. A second thing that we really feel strongly in is that independent science research at the high school level can be really exciting for high school students. Doing student-directed, student-designed, long-term research is something that is sort of can ignite something that encourages science pursuit in the future. We have SIP. We have other student-directed learning programs, and we really feel like those are great opportunities for students to undertake their own research in science. So we really want to try to start to promote that with the seniors and with other students that might be interested in doing independent research. We work in a great building. It's got amazing classrooms. We have beautiful labs. We have amazing resources. And we are thankful for that every day. We do have 2 rooms that were originally designed not as lab spaces. Rooms 206 and 236 were designed to hold classes that follow a more traditional curriculum. But right now, and for the past couple of years, they've held lab sciences. And it can be challenging at times to do really good, hands-on, project-oriented experiences in them. There are some pretty simple updates and retrofits that we can do in those rooms so that as we have this large population, but even in the future as the population drops, we can do the kinds of experiences in those rooms that are a little bit challenging at times to do now. Finally, you know, we're high school science teachers, and it's important to us that our students are enjoying science and learning science. But something that we also feel passionately about is that we're helping to instill or promote or encourage a lifelong interest in pursuing science to some degree. And at this point, we really don't know, or we don't have good data on what our graduates do with science after they leave Westwood. So we would really like to work on designing and implementing a survey that looks at whether or not students are majoring in science, whether or not our alumni are going into science as a career, or what they're doing with science. Because we love science and we really want to sort of grow and instill that in our alumni.
Thank you.
So a couple questions came up already that relate a little bit to the timeline. And I wanted to figure this out. So we've already started some of these things, and from now kind of through the summer, we've got a number of important items on the list. We need to get our elementary kind of leadership folks hired. We need to plan elementary and high school professional development. We need to get working already on that curriculum rollout, so we want to get started soon. Essentially, we have about a 3-year window from the state standards being adopted to where we can be really held accountable for those. And that's really what's driving this timeline. And we see us be able to get to full implementation by February of 2019. So that's what the goal is. Another piece of the puzzle this summer is some collaboration with existing SIP teachers to try and figure out ways we could promote more science-based projects through SIP. That might involve recruiting mentors from the community and outside the community that can really serve in terms of support. Big items as we go have to do with rolling out these curriculum units on a year-to-year basis. We're looking to sort of target a few things a year. We also need to start the search process for updated middle school resources. Along with that, you'll develop budget proposals. So we're really looking next fall. In the fall is when we would say, here's about how much money we think we need to do these things. So that would get for your consideration for the next budget cycle. And also reaching out to the preschool program directors to kind of begin to have that conversation about science. Starting next summer into the following year, if that budget goes through, so I'm not sort of, recommending that we just keep carrying on. We could begin to retrofit, we could begin to actually purchase the curriculum materials for the middle school, and also sort of outfitting with elementary libraries. We continue the curriculum alignment. I'd like to begin that process next summer of looking at scheduled information at the middle school and at the elementary school. And launching a postgraduate survey. Great thing to be able to do next year. And then that following, you'll notice that little half, kind of 3/4 of the year. And again, that's trying to meet that February deadline. I'd like us to be able to get that time of this February, all science stuff. And the last few things on that list are really kind of finalizing the curriculum, looking at buying those curriculum resources, which we think by then will be reusable and will and then beginning to actually develop scheduled proposals for the first thing. The reason 2018 is critical, as I said before, is that's when our population will start to drop. And we'll be able to sort of see ways to do the schedule we want to create. But right now, we've got a lot of part-time staff and shared staff between the teachers and also our room use is really kind of all stuff in there. Final thoughts here. I don't know how many folks are familiar with Richard Feynman, physicist, he's a Nobel Prize winner. He is a guy who dabbled in both the universe of theoretical physics. So and I'm probably not the right person to be talking about this, to be honest. But he worked on mapping out something about the behavior of subatomic particles. So I can tell you that. He also worked on designing the atomic bomb. So that's a more practical side. He was part of the team that reviewed the Challenger crash. And this is a picture of his blackboard at Caltech when he died. I want to blow something up. And the text is what I cannot create, I do not understand. I want to give credit to Greg Schwanbeck, who thought of this as sort of, how are we going to wrap this thing up? This is really what we've been talking about the whole time. But I think he's right. The theme here that kept coming up is that when students are in the driver's seat, when they're the ones sort of generating questions and investigating and messing things up and starting over again and looking at data, that's when they really remember and internalize the lessons of what we're trying to teach them. That's what we're really hoping to see. And we do hope to be back here the next time this curriculum review happens and to be able to share with you the results. And the results are going to be hard to measure. And that's one thing about this that's kind of interesting. This isn't something that's necessarily going to show up in our MCAS scores, but it will show up in us hearing back from our graduates that they're now pursuing actively careers in science, or that they're using science as doctors or as teachers, or that they're actually just following things that happen in the world and caring about them and feel literate and able to do that. So that's really the goal. It's been an absolute pleasure working with the team here. They're fantastic. I really appreciate your time. And if you have any other questions, we're all here.
Thank you so much.
I'm just going to comment on this group because I had the privilege of sitting in several meetings, and the commitment is tremendous, truly, and I thank you on behalf of the school committee for all the work that you and the others have done. And just even, oftentimes I would just sit in and listen, they would sit in pods, right, middle school, the preschool, the elementary school, high school, and I kind of walk around and listen, and they all just showed their dedication. They really want the kids to love science. It's not just about how do we teach science, how do we fulfill the requirements and so forth. It's really, I think there was one comment that was made that has stuck with me, and the person who said it much more eloquently than I will, but it was something about, we were talking about the lab in Newton, right? Remember this? It was someone mentioned, the Newton South or something has this incredible lab, and we were talking about that, and this teacher said, you know what, that's the window dressing. What we really want is for it's wonderful that they have this lab, but we're understanding that really kids aren't really using that lab so much, right?
Yes.
We're really concerned more so with having our kids roll up their sleeves, getting their hands dirty, and loving science, and finding ways to ensure that they love science. And so that, I thought, was very inspirational, and thank you all for the work that you're doing. It's not done. So it's a huge challenge, a huge undertaking.
We're just passing it off.
Well,
so let me take this opportunity to thank the committee for some really great and truly thoughtful work. I appreciate it, and specifically I will thank Allison Borchers, who began chairing this committee when I was on a leave of absence, and then when I came back, kept chairing the committee, which was fantastic. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Are there any other comments? Okay, let's move on to.
You're all welcome to stay or leave. I put that out there. You will not be rude for you to go home and see your
Go ahead,
friends.
if you want.
We'll be right
That's what. Second reading.
Thank you.
The second reading of the new policy on domestic violence leave.
Yeah, so our school committee policy regarding policy adoption requires 3 readings.
Right.
We did a first reading of the new policy last meeting. This is the second. There's no changes, but I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
Are there any comments?
We'll bring it forward in June for
Okay.
adoption.
Okay. Okay, let's move on to action items. We're going to have the annual vote of school choice. Do you want to explain it quickly?
Sure, yeah, state law or regulation perhaps requires school districts on an annual basis to make a determination as to whether or not they want to participate in the state's school choice program. School choice just means that if we were a school choice district, we would allow students from other towns to come to school. This I don't know what the breakdown is, but there's a lot of value in having school choice. We have a resolution that we've used for Joseph, and probably, it could be, I don't know, a long 15, 20 years, maybe the same resolution. The reality for us is that we don't even have the space to even consider school choice. So for the 23rd straight year, I'd recommend that we do not participate in school choice. But you need to take full action on that, and we need to notify the state every year. So that's that.
Okay, so can I have a motion on annual on the school choice?
So moved.
What's the motion?
That we're,
Well, it's. I don't think you need to read the whole thing, but there is the resolution.
And then I think you have to take
Yeah, you need to take a roll call vote. So let me just read the final resolution is that the Weston School Committee respectfully declines to participate in the school choice program with a provision that should surrounding school districts subsequently and prior to June 1 decide to accept the provisions of school choice. The Weston School Committee reserves the right to do likewise in order to protect its fiduciary interest in this matter. That's not going to happen, but that is the conclusion.
So if you don't want it, you vote yes. All right?
Yeah, we decline, so you don't want it, you vote yes.
All right, so we're going to do a roll call vote, okay?
Who want to move, someone want to move that?
We had a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, and the second was Brian. Okay, so, Mr. Mullen?
I'm in favor.
Oh, yay.
Yay.
Mrs. Lewis?
yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Jowdy, yes. It's unanimous, motion passed.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and then we will move right on to ratification of the administrative assistance collective bargaining agreement.
So you skipped, I'm sorry, if you recall, we had a revised
I
agenda.
know, and I don't have it.
Oh, sorry, so if you don't, well, we can do that first, but approval was there's some overnight,
Trips.
I would say trips.
Sorry.
So, and I apologize for not including that in the original packet. I know you have it now, but there are 3 great trips proposed. Sorry, I have to flip to my, 3 great trips proposed for next year at Westwood High School. There's a trip in February to Italy and Greece. Sounds wonderful. And there's also, during the same vacation, a proposed trip to Belize. The details of both trips are outlined And then let me just get this out. And then the third trip is an April vacation trip to England and Ireland, I believe. For some reason, I flipped to the right page. And so I know Sean recommends approval of all three, like do I. I'd like to answer any questions you have. One thing I do want to point out, I'm sorry, Tony, is when these original proposals came to us, I was very concerned about the cost. They were hitting sort of the high 3,000s, in some cases only 4. And I just personally had a lot of concerns about that. So I give a lot of credit. We kind of sent the teachers and Sean to help back to the drawing board and working with the tour companies to try to come up with a more reasonable cost. And I don't want to minimize the expense of this trip, but they all came in at around $2,900, which is a significant difference from the original. And I think they're still great trips, and I think it makes it a little more affordable.
Most trips
Still-
we're just taking hotels, right?
They're all hotel.
Yeah,
they're
so
all- yeah.
that's a very good price.
I think a real nice, diverse set of trips next year too. So anyway.
Sounds good. So, may I have a motion to recommend? Do you want to recommend them individually or all?
I think we can, it's up to you.
Is there any discussion on them?
Just a question, could school committee members be chaperones?
I know.
I ask that every single year.
Good question, no, we recommend
And
that.
nobody jumps in the absence.
Yeah, graduates too.
And it's all subject to the usual concerns if the world situation changes, we put the
Yeah,
discretion to revoke them.
We require trip insurance now as part of the purchase.
So the first two, February vacation, and the second one is, the third one, England and Ireland is April.
April, right.
And the only thing worth mentioning, I will mention it, is that we are talking about developing the Chinese exchange that we talked about. I don't want to confuse matters, but I forecast that we will be doing a Chinese a trip to China proposal for the June school committee a meeting that would be in April. So that should be, just to let you know what is on the docket. We have Chinese scoops coming in February and January or February, depending on where the Chinese New Year lands. I think it's late January. The trip to Belize and Italy and Greece, that's February break, so that's kind of the winter travel. And then the April break would be Ireland, England, and China. That would be the totality of it.
Can you just tell me, just briefly, the focus of each of these trips and what students would be eligible to go?
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting, Carol. The trip proposals now historically have been coming out of foreign language department, and the Belize trip is being developed by Mark McGonigal and Keith Matesta, and they Keith Matesta is an Spanish teacher, Mark McGonigal is an English teacher, and they look for trips that are interesting and adventuresome, but also have a very cultural and environmental appeal to them. And so that's the Belize trip. This is the same group that have done Costa Rica in the past. And I think it's an equivalent to the Costa Rica trip in that way. Sally Patton is a history teacher, social studies teacher. And so the focus of the Italy and Greece trip is world history and the history of that region, the characteristics of that history. And then the Ireland and England trip is by Katie Thurston, who's the K-12 art director. So that is really more of an arts and literature and history trip and these are all primarily 11th graders, 11th and 12th graders with some 10th graders that makes sense. It's a great diversity of trips. I look back on my notes of all the trips we've done since 2010. We've never had this kind of diversity. I was a little bit worried that they might cannibalize each other. I suspected that.
So the England-Ireland trip, you would expect that you would have kids who are interested, you may have kids in the arts, but you will also have English majors.
Yeah.
Literature, I think people with interest in literature and the arts.
I'll make a motion to be approved.
Yep, I'll second it.
Any more discussion? And all those in favor?
Thanks.
Okay, now we can go to ratification of the administrative assistance collective bargaining.
Yeah, so I should review in your packet. We also shared with you in your packet, a memo from Emily Parks that outlined some of the changes in our administrative assistant and secretary's contract.
Yeah.
Emily did a great job during the negotiation process, and I think we settled on a very, very fair and reasonable and kind of market-driven settlement. The annual increase, I mean, there's some language changes too, but from a budgetary perspective, the annual increase for 3 years is 2.5%, 2% respectively. I very fully support it. I think it's a great settlement across the board, and I recommend that it be ratified.
I have a motion to accept the administrative.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those, any more discussion? All those in favor? And then finally, approval of minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second?
I read the minutes. I'm quoted here under the first reading of the Domestic Violence Leave.
Yeah.
That's as saying there's a new state law policy allowing this leave. It should say the law requires this
Okay.
leave. So I just wanted to clarify that.
All right. So is, are there any?
Motion, we need a second? Is that what it is?
Yes, second.
Second, there you go.
How about discussion? Anything?
No.
All right, all those in favor? Okay. New business, do we have any new business that you want to bring up from the board?
No, I just was going to comment on new business from last time, I'm sorry.
Oh, you want to give us an update?
No, I mean, it's really not much of an update, but I forget who asked maybe about, kind of connecting to the alumni, West High School alumni. It's a bit of a challenge, but we have actually started doing a few things just to respond. Number one, I reached out to my colleagues to see if anybody has any ideas on how to kind of make that kind of school to alumni connection. And whether there's a company out there that could help us do surveys or what have you. So I really don't have much back from that. But we also just coincidentally, I had spoken with 2 alumni about LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Kind of the value and the power of LinkedIn, and we don't have really a LinkedIn presence, and so I'm actually working on one of those alums for the next couple of weeks to launch really just a Westwood High School page. But I really, purely coincidentally, 2 different alums that when they started going out into the job market and then even the intern market, that not having a page like a LinkedIn page for Westwood High School kind of put them at a little teeny bit of a disadvantage from, for example, like some of the private schools that have a pretty robust presence. So, small thing, but it's just one thing I think that's kind of important. It'll help us and help them connect with each other as well.
So you're going to develop?
Yeah, we're going to work
Right.
on it. Yep.
Super.
Yeah.
Do we give them emails for what? Like universities do?
No, we talked about that. Yeah.
So we don't, that's another step though that we're planning to take this year is we're going to be collecting, right now they have student accounts, but we're going to be collecting from them a more permanent, perhaps, email address.
We don't think they really would want to use a Westwood High School account.
The day after they graduate.
Yeah.
No,
Well, they're gonna
but
send them
that's
an
why.
account.
But we're going to try to at least,
Yeah.
we're going to at least try to collect.
I don't know about that.
I'll BC pretty soon.
Pretty soon. I just got mine, actually.
Yeah. So anyway, I just wanted to follow up on that.
Okay, and then new business? I'm sorry, public participation, I'm sorry. Any public participation? No? Okay. So,
Move to adjourn.
yeah, second. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor? Thank you all for coming, see you next time.